Hey guys, welcome back to Loft Sports. I'm Tyler.
I'm Seth.
Today we're going to be doing a little recap, conference by conference. We're going to take a look at three things. We're going to have a most surprising team, a most disappointing team, and an I told you so, which means we called that team almost to a T. We're going to start in the Pac12. Who was your I told you so out west?
I think my I told you so. I was really high on Utah, and I think Utah had a really good year. A couple things bounced a different way. They could have been in the mix for the playoff, just kind of like Oregon was. They kind of ended the year disappointing against Oregon, but Utah, I knew they'd be in the picture. They're going to be my I told you so. That defense was great all year. A tough physical team. It's a team no one really wants to line up and play, so I think I was right on that one.
Mine's Oregon. I had Oregon in the playoff. If they don't lose that game to Arizona State, they probably do get in the playoff over Oklahoma.
Yep.
But they did win the conference championship. They did win the Rose Bowl against a really stingy Wisconsin team.
Yep.
So although they didn't quite get where I thought they could, a 12-2 season is a very good season for Oregon.
Yeah.
Who's your most surprising team?
The most surprising team to me out of the Pac-12 is actually going to be UCLA, the way they finished the year.
Okay.
I think I did not expect much from them at all. It surprised me that they were actually starting to win some games and they were starting to play a lot better. I think they're a team going into next year is going to surprise a lot of people. Teams are going to be really hyped on them.
Mine's Oregon State. I know they didn't make a bowl game, but 5-7 from Oregon State, a team that's been 1 or 2 wins the last several years.
Yeah.
I was really impressed the way they were playing at the end of the year. What about your disappointing team?
My team is probably going to go Stanford. I really like Stanford. I like their quarterback. I think David Shaw's a great coach. I think what you saw this year is a team transition from what they've always done into a different style of attack, and I don't think they were set up for it. They might be a year away from having some talent to run more of a spread and passing attack because we know they've been a physical downhill team for years. I really expected more from them, and they were my disappointing team.
Mine was Washington. 8-5, got blown out in Chris Peterson's final game, ironically against Boise State. They had Jacob Eason, who a lot of NFL scouts think he has a big-time arm, transfer from Georgia.
Yeah.
I really thought they were a team that could compete with Oregon for the conference, and they just lost a lot of head-scratching games. They lost to Cal early in the year, so I'm disappointed in the way Washington finished the year. Moving on now to the Big 12. I'll go first in this one. The I told you so is West Virginia. A lot of people were surprised that West Virginia finished with a losing record, and I called 5-7, and that's exactly what they finished. They lost Will Greer. They lost Dana Holgerson. They basically lost everything off of a pretty good team from last year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why people are so surprised they did what they did, but I was right on with their
I was kind of all over the Big 12. I told you so. It's kind of an easy cop-out answer, but it is Oklahoma. I thought they were going to run over the conference a little bit. Get into that with my disappointing team because I didn't pick them, but it's Oklahoma. They're right there every year.
My surprising team is Baylor. I had them 7-5. They won 11 games. They were a play or two away both times against Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
They had a chance to go into the playoff, and they won the Big 12 championship game.
Which is crazy to think.
Yeah, and considering where they were a couple years ago with all these sexual assault issues that they had, I'm really surprised they had the year they had.
Yeah, and give Matt Rule a lot of credit. He's now the Panthers head coach. Wish him all the best there. It's one of those turnarounds that it's crazy to think that it happened, but and we've kind of talked about this too, when you're an offensive coach in the Big 12, it's probably going to be easier to turn it around, but still going from where they were to that, they're the obvious surprise team in the Big 12. I was shocked by them this year. And actually playing a little bit of defense in that conference.
They did.
Yeah.
Disappointment, you could go a couple different ways here, but I think we're going to agree on this. It's got to be Texas.
Yeah, absolutely.
8-5 season. Yeah, they won their bowl game, but how much did Utah really want to be there after having a chance at the playoff ripped out from under them? Texas played LSU and Oklahoma pretty well, but they lost some head-scratching games, nearly lost to Kansas. There's no excuse with Sam Ehlinger back. And being where they were last year, Texas should have regressed this year. I think Tom Herman might be on the hot seat.
That's what I'm saying. That's a big black eye on him because he was like Texas is back.
Yep.
We heard it all off season how, they're back. They're going to challenge Oklahoma. And I actually had them in my original playoff.
You did, yep.
So they're obviously my most disappointing team. I mean, yeah, they got to, they played good against the LSU, Oklahoma. It just wasn't consistent enough. Played down to their competition way too much.
Yep.
That team and that quarterback's way too good. I agree. I think Tom Herman has to be kind of mentioned that. And then another disappointing team, just not to go the exact same, TCU. I thought they'd have more to offer this year and kind of challenge Oklahoma and Texas. That ended up being Baylor. It's kind of that third or that second team, but I thought TCU had a chance, so kind of disappointed in the Horned Frogs too.
Moving on to the Big Ten, who was your I told you so?
I'm going to say Michigan. I didn't think they were going to have a good year. I got kind of the losses wrong, but the record was right about there. I said they'd finish third, or actually I think I had them third or fourth in the East, and that's kind of right where they finished. Very underwhelming year for them. Really disappointing. And Harbaugh, I think that seat, he might not necessarily be on the hot seat yet, but it is heating up for sure. They're preheating the oven there for him.
My I told you so is Wisconsin. I picked them to win the West. There was a lot of hype around a few other teams in that division, not to point fingers. But I told you Wisconsin was going to be right back where they thought. They always run the football. They play good defense. They're a hard team to beat, even though they may not be as talented as some of the other teams.
Absolutely.
But the Badgers put together a pretty stout season. What about your surprise team in the Big Ten?
So it's pretty obvious here. I think Minnesota coming out of nowhere. I've gotten some flack, I'll say, and I've gotten some flack on the a few comments because I was pretty critical and harsh of PJ Fleck. The guy still annoys me. Everything about him annoys me. I'm not a Minnesota fan in the slightest, but you got to give him credit.
11 wins.
Every week we thought this was going to be the step back. They just took another step forward. I was shocked they beat Penn State.
Yep.
And I was honestly shocked about how kind of easy they made it look. I knew they were going to fall off. Didn't think they'd win the West when it came time to play Wisconsin, but still, out of nowhere, the surprise team. I not only think of the conference, but could say the surprise team of the whole.
I would agree with
the
that.
whole country.
The obvious answer is Minnesota, but just so it's not redundant, I'm going to say Indiana. Indiana had 8 wins.
Yeah.
They were right there against some really good teams. They played Penn State and Michigan pretty tough. I was really impressed from what I saw from the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I got to see them play.
That's right.
And a loss, but when I was back home in Nebraska, watched the Nebraska-Indiana game there, got to go to that. And, they're a team that doesn't necessarily have anything special, but they just did the things that you have to do to win games in that conference. Very surprising year from them. And honestly, I'd be okay if it continues. I think the East needs some more challengers there.
Yeah, we'll see if it's a one-hit wonder and
for sure.
If they go back to reality. What about your disappointment in the Big Ten?
Okay, well, I know where you're probably going with that, so I'll let you knock on my Huskers if you'd like to. I'm not going to say they're the most disappointing team. I think, to me, it's actually, I'm going to go with Michigan State. Mm-hmm. I really like them. They had the elite defense, and I thought that the offense just did enough. Maybe even 17 points if they could eke that out a week. Probably puts them second or third in the division. That offense was god-awful all year. It kind of gave the defense no chance no matter how good they played. But the defense also didn't play up to that elite level I thought they would. Still a very good defense, but not the same as what I thought. And you almost got to wonder if the time's ticking on D'Antonio there.
Yeah.
He's been their most successful coach, but, I mean, if stuff's not working anymore, they might have to look at changing it. We'll see.
Yeah, there was a lot of disappointing teams in the Big Ten. Nebraska, Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue was disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually go with Northwestern.
Right.
To win the West last year and bring a lot of that team back and then just lay a complete turd and go 3-9. I was really surprised. You don't see a Pat Fitzgerald coach team beat themselves and lose games that are close. Northwestern was very out of character this year.
They were. I mean, that's a team that, as you know, they always have very close games against Nebraska, and that's just how they are. They've always had these close losses against everybody because they're very much like a Wisconsin and Iowa. They're just not as good as them. They're always a tough out. But this year, they just didn't do any of those things they normally do. Offense was terrible. Defense couldn't stop people. It's just really bad and just odd anomaly year for Fitzgerald there. Who's one of my favorite coaches. I hope he has a rebound year. I just hope not better than Nebraska.
ACC, I'll go first in this one. Told you so is Virginia. I called them winning the Coastal. I said they'd go 10-2. They went 9-3.
Yeah.
But they had a good year. Bryce Perkins played well. Their defense was stingy. I figured about Virginia would do exactly what they did. And they went out and they finally beat Virginia Tech for the first time. I think it was in like 15 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I have the right to brag there with Virginia.
I wasn't really high on anybody in this conference besides two teams. One of them will be my disappointment, and my other is my I told you so, I guess. I'm just going to say Clemson is the obvious one. Everyone knew it was happening. I didn't really have any other predictions to kind of say, yeah, I told you so, other than Clemson's going to run all over the conference, and they did. So I'm not going to say much on that.
My surprise team is Louisville. Louisville was a 2-10 team last year. They opened up against us in the first week on Labor Day night. Played us pretty tough for a half. And then they went on to win 8 games, so including a bowl game. I'm really impressed with the way Louisville bounced back after a disappointing season. I don't have a problem with Louisville, so I hope it continues. But I was really impressed with them.
My surprise team is going to be Wake. Wake's been just an absolute bottom feeder for years in that conference. They put together crazy offensive numbers, had a really good year. It might be a one-hit wonder, but you can't deny that came out of nowhere. Surprise team of the conference for me.
And their quarterback is transferring to Georgia, so that's interesting too.
It will be interesting.
Disappointment, we're probably going to agree on this one. It's got to be Miami. Miami was a potential dark horse playoff team early in the season. Their defense was supposed to be elite, not just good, but elite. And they were supposed to have the quarterback situation figured out, and once again, they just didn't have any of those things. They were outclassed. They lost to FIU down the stretch. And how do you get shut out by Law Tech in a bowl game?
I mean, it is what it is there with Miami. I was really high on Miami. I think in our ACC video, I rambled on and on and on trying to justify it. But that defense was nowhere near where they should have been. They have a lot of great players. They had a great defense coming back. They had a top 10, top 15 defense with most of those starters back. I don't know what happened. The offense couldn't get anything going, and I'm about done with Miami as a whole.
Until they prove it,
just because every year they have all this potential, but it's the same stuff every single year, just almost kind of like USC, and I don't know. Miami, that's a dumpster fire right now. They got a lot to figure out.
SEC, who's your I told you so?
My I told you so, it's going to sound maybe a little out there a little bit because they didn't really end up doing too much. But I'm going to say Florida. I thought Florida was going to be right there in the thick of things. I thought they'd be that third, fourth best team, and no one could have predicted what LSU was doing this year. But I did think that they were going to be okay. Jackie, you did. I'll give you that. But yeah, no, I think Florida was my I told you so. I'm really high on Dan Mullen. I think they have a great future there. They finally maybe have a quarterback that they can actually rely on instead of Franks going forward. So I'm looking for them. They're going to be one of my surprise teams to make a run at the playoff next year. Just throwing that out there, a little preview.
There you go. Mine's going to be Tennessee. Now, they started off poorly with losses to Georgia State and BYU, but I predicted they'd go 7-5, and they actually did. And some of those wins were against better teams. They got better as the year progressed. I still don't know if I have faith that Jeremy Pruitt's the answer down there, but to see Tennessee kind of getting a little bit of confidence back, they're a team I wouldn't mind seeing get back to being
I was just going to say that a team that when we grew up and when we were starting to form our own kind of love of college football, Tennessee was a really good team, great, passionate fans, everything like that. Very similar to Nebraska in a lot of ways, so I have a lot of respect for them. I hope it does continue because I'd like to see that kind of change in the SEC, the change of the guard. But we'll see. Definitely an intriguing year from them.
Who's your surprise?
Honestly, my surprise is probably going to be Tennessee. I thought they were going to be awful. I think in our video I said they might only win 3-4 games. I didn't expect much from them at all. That conference is hard to get a winning record, and I don't care who you're playing against, even if you got the easiest schedule, you have a winning record in that conference. Your conference record is winning, is what I mean. It's really impressive from them. Like I said, I kind of hope it continues.
Yeah. My surprise team is LSU. I doubted LSU all season. I doubted them even going into the SEC championship game. Even though I thought they'd win, in the back of my mind, I was like, defense wins championships. And eventually, not playing good defense is going to catch up to LSU. And it just never did. They were dominant every single week they stepped on the field. They outclassed some of the best teams in the country, some of the better defensive coordinators out there. They absolutely made them look silly. So LSU runaway surprise team for me. And then lastly, SEC disappointment.
My disappointing team, and I know they still had a solid year, but mine's going to be Georgia. I thought Georgia was going to actually sneak into the playoff this year. I thought they'd be a second team in there. Didn't turn out that way, and I think a lot of Georgia fans out there not really impressed. You know, it's not like a year where you can look at the losses and go, well, you see this and that. It's very kind of underwhelming, and this was a team that has been a player or two away from being a national champion one year and then getting back to the playoff the next year. And for them to just take that step back with most of that team returning, that was just really disappointing for me. Really disappointing.
Mine's going to be Missouri. Now, I know they were on sanctions and they wouldn't have gone anywhere anyway. But with Kelly Bryant transferring from Clemson, I really thought Missouri would build off the 8-4 season they had last year. And they just fell flat. They lost to Wyoming. They got crushed by Wyoming. I don't even think they would have made a bowl game even if they were eligible. I think they'd finished with less than 6 wins. And I thought Missouri would be a team that maybe decided the East by beating Georgia or Florida down the stretch.
At least have a say in it.
And they just sucked. Like, Missouri was disappointing as hell to me this year. So, so that's our wrap on the Power 5 conferences. We'll continue to do some more videos as the off season goes on and we get towards spring ball.
Yeah, and get that coaching carousel when all that's kind of finished up. We'll do some videos on that, surprising changes. No, there's one in Starkville we're talking about for sure.
Yeah, and Oxford too, the state of Mississippi. Thank you guys. This is Loft Sports signing off.